Hey, this is Ruben Jay from MultiMediaMouth.com, and you are here to talk and listen to me chat about the Jesus Revolution film. I've been doing a better job of better investing my time when I go to the movies to try to create some content out of it. And so that leads me to this kind of deal that we're doing here on YouTube, which is watch this. And so I highly recommend that you go to your local theater, whether you are a Christian or somebody who maybe grew up in the Jesus Revolution time, and or somebody who's heard of the Jesus Revolution and are just interested in how and what actually went down during that time period, because it's a great film. I was able to get an early access screening to it, and it honestly is one of the best films that I've seen in a very long time. And I've seen a lot of movies over the last couple of years, since probably about 2016, 2017, around there, when I started watching movies more often. I'm not somebody who typically goes out of their way to watch movies, but I got, Movie Pass and AMC Stubs A List, and now Regal Unlimited, which is not as good as I thought it was, but we'll talk about that some other time. And so I'm using that to go and watch more movies, to be able to make reviews for people and give people my opinions on stuff that they've never asked about, because I don't think anyone cares about what my opinion is. But I'm making a video for it anyway. The Jesus Revolution film honestly is a absolutely incredible film. I I knew very little about the Jesus Revolution and the Jesus movement and all of that stuff that was going down during this time frame. And while I, kind of sort of grew up in the Calvary Chapel stuff, I never really, learned much about what was happening in the Jesus Revolution in those early days, in the Calvary Chapel movement, because I was always more focused on what was happening today. So the film is produced by Lionsgate. Greg Laurie is heavily involved. There's a book called The Jesus Revolution that I would assume is really well written and a good book as well. This movie stars Kelsey Grammer and a couple of other big names in the world of Christianity entertainment. The guy who plays uh, Lonnie Frisbee, who is one of the key players in the early Calvary Chapel days. He plays Jesus in The Chosen, which is this has somewhat of a cult following type situation within Christians, and it's one of those things that is doing really well in Christian entertainment. And so it's a good cast of actors who are working on this movie. And the director and the producers of the movie also produced one of the other big Christian hits, I Can Only Imagine, a couple of years ago. And so there were some names attached to this project that gave this project some real hope. And so what I enjoyed about the movie, there's a couple things I enjoyed about the movie. First of all, the storytelling in the movie is really great. It really cap- captures what was going on in the time while the Jesus Revolution and the Jesus movement and the Jesus people and Love Song and Maranatha and all that stuff was happening. These producers and these writers and this director and these actors did a great job of capturing what was happening during this time. And again, I did not grow up in the era, didn't haven't done much research about what actually happened in this time frame. I just happen to be a fan of what Greg Laurie stands for, the stuff that he has done in his career as a preacher, and so I knew I wanted to go watch this movie. So a couple of things that I like to point out here real quick is the one thing about Christian movies that I typically don't like is that they tend to shy away from the controversial stuff. Like they tend to not show people kissing. They tend not to show people going out and having some drinks, and they tend not to show people, you know, um, tripping out on drugs and a lot of that stuff. There was a movie that we watched years ago when I was in high school. I actually remember playing this at a high school event. And the big takeaway was that there was a party scene and nobody was partying, nobody was dancing, nobody was drinking, nobody was doing all the stuff that happens at these parties. And it turned a lot of people off because they're like, well, this isn't realistic. This party is not realistic. And so that's always been in the top of my mind when I watch Christian movies is how cheesy is this going to be? And the Jesus Revolution movie did a good job of showcasing some controversial stuff. Um, so the very first thing I remember kind of tripping out on, no pun intended, was there was a scene where Kathy, the girl who would become Kathy Laurie, was at a party with her sister, and her sister overdosed, and they actually showed her tripping out and then also overdosing. And so it was a very powerful moment in the film that really captured your attention and really made you realize, oh, this isn't like the other Christian films. This is actually this is going to do something, and this is going to make a statement. And we saw her vomit and start choking on her own vomit, and they did a great job showcasing that this was going to be somewhat of an edgy Christian film, and that was early on in the film. They also showed, the awkwardness of Greg flirting with his future wife, Kathy. And it was really interesting just to kind of see that they allowed these characters to actually be somewhat humanistic. And it really showcased there are people involved in this world that, like, even as a film that is being designed as a ministry tool, that you could still allow the flaws of man to showcase and really be prevalent in the film. And so that was a great thing to see, just some of that stuff happening. And we saw Greg Laurie and his friends tripping on acid, and we saw, you know, people dancing like crazy and having a good time. And it was a great, great thing. Now, what I love everything about the film. It felt like it was shot in the 70s. It felt like it was shot in the moment. They actually had some film that they put the effect that it looked like it was being filmed on a film camera from back in the day. And so I really enjoyed being able for a moment to think that we were back in that time. Not that I was ever there, but I know that the nostalgia was there for some people, and it was overall was a great, great movie. Now, the one thing that I wish they would have done a little bit differently is I wish they would have shown more of the growth aspect of Greg Laurie. Like, I felt like they went from he was struggling with his his indecisiveness for Christ. He then decided to go with Christ, and then he felt confused for a minute, and then all of a sudden he was a pastor, and they gave him a church, and that was the end of the film. I feel like there's a lot more involved, and I know part of it is to showcase, the love of the hippies, and to um really show that Chuck Smith loved on the hippies, and welcomed them into the church reluctantly, and that he almost lost everything by doing so. I understand that was part of it, but for me, knowing where Greg Laurie would ultimately end up, I just felt like there was a little bit more to be desired. So overall, this is a great movie. I think it's a family friendly movie. There's some stuff that maybe you don't want to bring like your 4-year-old to, but your older kids who are maybe in high school, late junior high, I think it's great for them to actually see this all play out. I think it's a great movie. I think it's the best Christian film. The best Christian film released to date has to be the Jesus Revolution movie. And I know there's some other good ones out there, but this is the best one, in my opinion. Overall, I give it a 7.5 out of 10, and that's my opinion. And you don't have to like it, you don't have to agree with it, but you should go watch the movie. Anyway, Ruben Jay here. Make sure to like this video, comment what you think. If you've already seen it, tell me what you think of the movie, and share this video with a friend. All right. I'll see you guys next time.